Ruffy in the Riverside is finally here! Nick, I have to tell you, from the moment I saw the first trailer for this game, I was immediately hooked on the idea. It has that classic 64 art style, almost Paper Mario-like, along with this amazing Nintendo-like swapping mechanic where you can copy the texture of one thing and paste it to another and gain its attributes. I say Nintendo-like, not in the sense that we've seen this before, but more in the sense of like, oh my god, that's something Nintendo should have thought up, right? And now that's finally here, you and I have been playing it a ton. I actually beat the game last night. I didn't 100% it, but I did get through the main story. You've been playing a fair amount as well, and we're here to talk about it. So I want to go over the highs, the lows, and everything else, Nick. What stood out to you so far about the game?
Yeah, so like you said, like when I first saw the trailer for the game, I ran to my Steam Deck. I'm like, oh, I gotta wishlist this because the art style is probably the thing that like stands out to me the most. Like just walking around this world, seeing the animation of the characters, they're flat style, but yet they're so animated in this 3D world. Like that was the thing that like stuck out to me the most. It almost feels like you're reading or like it's like a kid's book, like coloring book come to life. That's like what I get from playing this.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it really feels like the 64 Paper Mario on steroids, right? Because you've got this like awesome 2D, cardboard cutout art style, but they're like really well animated here, like fully animated, which looks amazing. But then it's just so within the context of like a kind of low poly, intentional low poly 64 like environment that really again feels like they took the idea of Paper Mario and just really expanded it into the more of a 3D platforming type thing. Although interestingly, this game doesn't really feel all that 3D platforming like at the same time too, which we'll get into. But yeah, the game looks lovely, and then you add on top of that, I'm sure something else that stood out to you being that swapping mechanic, which is just wild, where you take, like, I at one point I turned the entire ocean into lava, Nick. I copied the little lava thing, put it into the ocean, I'm like, oh my god, I just ruined this world. Everyone's screwed, everything's burning, hope you all survive, good luck.
Yeah, the copy mechanic is just like it's flourishing in this game, and that's like the main thing that you'll be doing throughout this game, right? Because like it isn't a platformer, traditional platformer in that sense. It's more of like a puzzle platformer, right? Because like you have this copy ability, and for instance, you see a waterfall, right? Like you're not going to go up the waterfall, but if you copy like a vine in the area, you can throw it at the waterfall, and then you can climb it because now it's climbable. So yeah, this mechanic is everywhere, and you're gonna be using this throughout the campaign or the game, like constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. It pops up everywhere, both, as you go through the main story or even in the side modes. Like, they really try to make the most of the mechanic as they can. There's even, like, little puzzle, like Breath of the Wild, like, shrines you can solve, involving, like, trying to match a picture using the swappable tiles to a hidden diagram elsewhere in the world. There's also these, like, tile puzzles throughout, which really made me rack my mind each time, but after solving each one, I felt like a complete genius. But yeah, the thing with this game is I think it's good to have the expectation going in, which I didn't, that this is really less of a typical 3D collectathon platformer like from the 64 era, and more of a linear kind of story driven in a sense to a degree, like puzzle solving game, as you were saying. Like I said, again, I actually think Paper Mario is kind of like the best like kind of thing to have in mind, because that also is linear. You are solving puzzles along the way, and it's not really much of a platformer, though there are platforming elements. And kind of the same thing here too. The only the key difference is there's no like turn-based combat in this game. But yeah, like although there are enemies, they don't really factor in at all. There's only 3 boss fights in the game. They only pop up kind of like in the latter half too. And so the focus really is more on kind of general exploration with a lot of optional collectibles, and then also like going through the main story and like solving puzzles along the way. And I do have to say, kind of like Paper Mario, maybe even more so, this game feels really diverse as you go, essentially chapter by chapter. The whole idea of the game is trying to find letters that are part of the giant Riverside sign, kind of like the Hollywood sign. You gotta find the letters throughout the world, and each one's kind of tied to like its own little mission, right? And each one of those feels really, really varied. Like you just finished one where you were helping a ghost, I think, solve in a contest, right?
Yeah, these ghosts have like a flower contest, and they want to like dress up like their tombstone. So that's where I'm at in the game. I'm like, what? You need help dressing up your tombstone? Like, what are you trying to do here? Right. But yeah, like you said, like this mechanic is just everywhere, and it's the key part of the game. And that's one of my critiques with it. Like I wish there was a little bit more flexibility with the swapping mechanic, because like I wish there was some puzzles that we ran into and it's like, oh, I have an idea how to solve it, but the game really restricts you and wants you to solve it one specific way. So I wish we really had it where it's like, oh, I went over here, how did you burn this box, or how did you get to this ledge, or something like that. It's like, oh, I copied like wind, or copied water, and that was an easier way to get to it. But no, the game really wants you to solve it in one particular way.
That's a good observation. You know, I mentioned it kind of feels like a throwback in many ways to the 64 era, and that's true for its kind of Zelda-like puzzle solving too. Because it's less Breath of the Wild, it's more like a classic Zelda's, where there really, as far as I can tell, only one basic solution to most of these puzzles. And there were a few instances where I'm like, oh man, it would have been kind of cool if like I'd been able to do it this way, or, you know, if there had been other ways of solving it. Because I will say, you know, for as robust as the swapping mechanic is, and just how incredible it is as a premise, there were a few times where I wish I pushed it just a little bit farther, you know? I'm like, oh, there's probably even more potential with this idea, and they do some, you know, kind of wild stuff here, but I also wish that there's even more to it. But I did feel like I was applying, like, say, vines to a waterfall a little bit too often in the game, even though I enjoyed it, and I never would say it got boring at any point in terms of puzzle solving. There were a few times where I'm like, okay, maybe they could have done something a little bit different in this instance, you know, and, you know, tried it a different way. But that's kind of like a minor nitpick in the grand scheme of things. But by and large, the puzzles, you know, they overall work well and kind of do make you think about what you're doing. Although I would almost say maybe too far in some instances, but there were a couple of times where I didn't quite know what I was supposed to be doing. I just kind of stumbled my way through a puzzle. Like, there's a couple involving magnets, and in both cases, I had almost no idea what to do. Like, I had a kind of loose idea of what they were expecting, but I didn't know how to get there. I just kind of stumbled my way through, and I feel like just a little bit more direction may have helped, or maybe a clearer idea of how the magnets actually function. But then I was talking to you about it, and you had no problem with that puzzle, right? So, maybe I'm just stupid, Nick.
I got up to it, and at times I'm just like throwing darts like at a dartboard blindly. Like, I'm just copying stuff. I'm like, oh, maybe this will work. Maybe I'll do this. And then at times it would be like, once you solve it, be like, oh, the light bulb goes off, right? It's like, oh, that's what I was supposed to do. Now that makes total sense. But if you're not like a big puzzle player like me, or puzzle game player, like there's some like crows or some instances where you can kind of pay off the NPCs and be like, hey, like, I'll pay you some coin, just give me a better hint. And that's a nice thing about this, because again, like, I'm not huge into puzzles, and there's some times where I'm like, okay, I want to move on to like the next chapter or next point in the actual game. So it's like, hey, like, I'll give you some coin, just show me what I'm supposed to do here.
Yeah, those crow puzzles in particular are probably some of the tougher ones. And after I started finally wrapping my mind around what the idea of those puzzles were, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense now. And I was starting to have a lot of fun solving those puzzles, you know? And I thought it was really well done, and it's nice that there is a solution there if you can't figure it out, to just pay off the crow. And I kind of wish there were maybe a few other instances of that throughout the game, where maybe there are some puzzles where like just a little bit more help would have helped. Like if there was a character that gave me more of a clue as to what to do. Because there were a few other times where I'm like, I don't know what the game's asking of me.
Yeah, and you do have a little companion, the little bee that follows you around. So like that would have been a great thing if the bee, like if you talk to the bee and be like, hey, like, can you just show me what to do, or give me like a little tidbit? Because like we said, like those crow segments, you can pay them off, but like there's other parts in the games where it's like you're just scratching your head around. You might be sitting around for maybe like 10-15 minutes. It might be like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I have no idea, honestly.
And maybe that actually ties into maybe one of my two main complaints about the game, which, you know, overall it's a lot of fun. I had a great time, but complaint number one is it is just a little rough around the edges. They had like, it's clear they had huge ambitions for the game, and what they realized is amazing, but you know, at the same time you can tell it's just a little rough, such as one where I was like actually I don't even know if it's a technical issue or not, but like a gameplay flow issue where I was solving puzzles before they had been officially activated, meaning I was getting myself into areas where there should have been a reward, but there wasn't yet, but I didn't activate the main quest for it yet. And that really threw me off. I was really confused, especially because there were NPCs nearby who were also referring to that reward I could get, but it hadn't manifested yet because I hadn't activated the main quest in the area. They only popped up like once or twice in the game, so it's not a huge deal, and I figured it out eventually, but you know, that obviously confused me when it happens. But another one that stood out to me is I was playing on Switch primarily, and there's some draw distance issues in the game. It doesn't affect the playability, but it is a little, it does stand out a bit when the world is kind of like disappearing in front of you in the distance at points, which isn't an issue on PS5 as far as I can tell. And also apparently they're looking into a Switch 2 patch, which should resolve it, apparently. I was playing on Switch 2, so hopefully that patch, you know, does fully address that. My only other complaint, really, and it's almost like a backhanded compliment, I think, or complaint, I don't know how you ever want to put it, in that the game is almost a little bit too ambitious, but there's so much going on here. They have a whole, like, really well-realized town that the NPCs running all over the place, different shops you can go to. The thing is, you can basically ignore it, and I did, not intentionally. I just didn't have much need to go there. And as it turns out, once I got finished beating the game, I went back and there's all kinds of upgrades you can get. You can upgrade, like, or change your tunic. There's a slot machine upgrade game where you can enhance your stats, like your health and your stamina. But the thing is, like, I never felt like I needed it, because this game, again, as you said several times now, it's not so much a platforming game as it is like a puzzle game within a platforming environment. And so because of that, you know, the enemies never really challenge you. Even the boss fights aren't aren't that difficult, and there's only a handful of them. So I never really felt like I needed stamina or health, which comes, both of which regenerates really quickly. And so it felt weird that they had this whole, upgrade system that I never once needed to do. So it kind of made all the collectibles a little bit at odds with the game design, because there's so much to find, but you don't really need to do any of it because you're not really incentivized or pushed to it. Now, that being said, I still like that it's there. Now that I've been in the game, I've actually had fun going back and finding all those, collectibles, little trinkets. But I feel like had they been tied a little bit more into the core structure and design of the game, that will help make it feel even better, right? Like if they're like, oh, I need health, let me go find some of these things so I can upgrade my health, and that would feel really good, and unfortunately it doesn't quite have that. So I feel like they're almost trying to attempt it a little bit too much, which again isn't the worst complaint to have, right? This game's doing too much, And
yeah, and that's the thing, like picturing a sequel years down the line, it's like, oh my god, they have so much here that is a solid base that they can improve on. Like the sky's the limit with this game.
It really is, yeah, and that's the thing. Like this game, like it's so clear, like how passionate developers were, and their influences in particular being 3D platformers and especially Nintendo. There's some really fun references, like direct references to that too, including one from Zelda that made me literally laugh out loud when it happened. It was all very cute. The whole game's full of charm. The world is incredibly lively. Like there is so much going on in this world. It is ridiculous how alive it feels, which is just a really nice feeling, and it is just enjoyable to explore. But what's here in Ruffy and the Riverside is really good, really promising, even with some of the rough or roughy edges. And I had a good time throughout. Oh, I have to give a shout out to, by the way, the villain in particular. Something about the villain, the way he's animated, the way he talks, I just really enjoyed all of it. And there's even a fun little detail. I don't want to put too much emphasis on this because I don't want to overhype it, but there's one little cute thing they do in the end game that I really liked. I'm like, oh, that's neat. I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a fun little detail. But yeah, overall, I had a really good time. Ruffy the Riverside, so much passion went into it that if this game looks interesting to you, I would definitely recommend checking it out, because there aren't too many indie games quite like this that feel like they deliver, at the scale on this level, even with some of the rougher edges. So, Nick, do you have any final thoughts at all, or?
No, I'm looking forward to playing a little bit more of it, especially since we're kind of in a drought of 3D platforms.
Yeah.
I feel like we've got them over the years. There's been so much of it, but now it's just okay, we need them right now. So yeah, this is a good game to play during the summer. That again, I'm looking forward to continuing playing it.
Yeah, definitely great timing for Ruffy and the Riverside, considering there's no Mario in sight right now, right?
Yeah.
So definitely a good timing. Although DK is coming up soon, but that's a little bit of a Joan thing at the same time. So, well, there you have it, everyone. Those are our thoughts on Ruffy and the Riverside. Thank you for watching. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for lots more as we follow the hopefully future developments of this exciting, promising development team, because Ruffy and the Riverside has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what's from them next. So we'll catch you later, everyone, with that. Bye.